Hello, historians. Today we're looking at trade networks, empires, exploration, and conquest, and how Europeans developed technologies that enabled them to trade and travel far beyond the Mediterranean. So, a little bit of a review first. We've been looking at regional trade networks, and we're moving into how the world is interconnected. Three powerful trading networks, actually four here. The first is the Mediterranean, the Venetian trade network, dominated by the city of Venice, hence the name Venetian. The Venetians made a lot of money trading pepper, but they got their pepper from the red route, the silk routes here, and the blue routes, the Indian Ocean trade routes. These were not dominated by the Chinese, but the Chinese did explore the Indian Ocean region under the Admiral Zhang He, who we've read about in the past. Another regional trade network is the Baltic Sea trading network in Northern Europe. The Baltic Sea trading network was dominated by a league called the Hanseatic League, called the Hansa, and they connected the growing Rus, the Russian Empire, with the Vikings and Scandinavian kingdoms and the smaller kingdoms of Northern Europe, England, and what is now France and Germany. So these are all regional trade networks that had some interaction with each other. They mainly traded within their own region, and connections between the regions were most profitable for luxury items. So the world economy did not depend upon trade. That's really important to note. There's some huge changes that happened during this time period. From the 1400s to the 1600s, Venice declined in power. The Chinese stopped exploration, and Europe rose to be powerful and connecting the world in trade and in politics. So our three questions help us to understand the time period of the 1400s and 1500s, and even into the 16 and 1700s. There are four clues to these changes. Venice's decline was partly related to the growth of the gunpowder empires. They're called gunpowder empires because their strength was based upon the use of firearms, guns, to expand their influence and to hold on to their influence. But their qualities were other qualities were much more important than simply their expansion. You have looked at an example of cultural diffusion in architectural techniques from the Ottoman Empire and Hagia Sophia and the Suleiman Mosque to the Safavid Empire with the Great Mosque of Isfahan and the Mughal Empire with the Taj Mahal. So there's a lot of sharing between these empires. These empires also presented a barrier because if the Venetians were to get pepper, which was their most profitable product, they had to get it from Ottoman traders. Those Ottoman traders had to get their pepper from Safavid merchants or from Mughal merchants or from Arab merchants who dominated trade in the Arabian Sea. So the rise and strength of these three empires, the Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal Empire, was one of the reasons that Venice slowly declined. Why did the Chinese stop exploring? Well, the Ming Dynasty, at the bottom of the page, a group of scholars following Confucian traditions, they were called the New Confucians or Neo-Confucians. They felt that Chinese men should not be on extended journeys away from home because they couldn't then fulfill their duties of filial piety or showing respect to their ancestors. There were also external threats to the Ming Dynasty from invasions from the north and internal weaknesses. So the Ming Dynasty scholars urged the empire to end the treasure fleet explorations. It also was convenient that Zhang He died in 1433 in the Middle East. So there was no single man who could lead exploration. So the Ming Dynasty was poised to be a powerful influence in Indian Ocean and South China Sea trade, and perhaps world exploration, but they were not. On the right-hand side, economic recovery and political competition. Meanwhile, in Europe, large European kingdoms were developing. Europe was coming out of the Dark Ages, so-called, out of the time of the bubonic plague, and began to produce more food, which created more agricultural wealth, more health, and European kingdoms became larger and more powerful. When kingdoms become larger and powerful, they tend to spend more money on luxury goods. So there's a demand for luxury goods like pepper. They also tend to spend more money on things that might be considered less important in times of hardship, things like technology or making maps or exploring new places. So that brings us to the top clue, the development of knowledge and technology. There was more sharing, new instruments, new maps, and new ship and sail designs. These came to Europe through traders of the Mediterranean Sea. None of these were new inventions, except the caravel ship design was an improvement upon previous design, and Mercator's map projection was a new development. But the astrolabe, sextant, and magnetic compass were not new. They had been used by traders for a long time in the Arabian Sea and Mediterranean Sea and South China Sea, but now the Europeans began to use them and to refine their use and apply it to exploration. So these four clues lead us to better understand how the Europeans engaged in European voyages of discovery. So our task today is to look at technology and knowledge and to better understand these clues.